Hi, hello, and welcome to a new episode of Release. I'm your host, Adriana, and I'm so honored and grateful that you've taken the time to listen to what I have to say. And today I wanted to talk about vulnerability and how sometimes we tend to confuse vulnerability and openness and ways in which we can foster being more vulnerable, even in little ways in our lives. So recently, probably last week, 2 weeks ago, I saw a video talking about openness versus vulnerability. And that was one of the first times that I had been really given the words to articulate how I felt I was navigating through the world, because I kept saying, I want to be more vulnerable. I want to dig deeper. But it seemed as though there wasn't really anything happening. It felt kind of like I was kind of like digging around the issue in a sense. And I know that for a lot of people, I have said, I am vulnerable on the podcast before. I have said that. But for a lot of people, I feel like it's hard to differentiate between them because they can look very similar, especially if you are more emotionally in tune with yourself. The way that I see it is sort of like, imagine you are at the beach, right? And at the shore where ocean meets sand, it's very shallow. You can walk in, and then as you walk out further, the water covers your ankles, and then it covers your knees, and then it covers you at the waist, and then chest, and then neck, and then you can't touch the floor with your feet. And for some people, their openness is just at the ankle level. And for some, openness may even be at the waist or at the chest. Like, some people are a lot more open with what they communicate to people that aren't necessarily in their close circle. And for me, I tend to be a pretty open person, but because I guess, like I said, I'm more emotionally in tune with myself, there are more things that I have talked about and things that I'm more comfortable talking about and things that I speak about because I know that they will be beneficial to other people. And it just sort of goes along with the stories, and like I said, I'm comfortable saying them, etc. But with vulnerability, I find it pretty hard speaking for myself. I know a lot of people really struggle with being vulnerable. And for me, growing up in the family, if you are Jamaican, Caribbean, Black, even if you are a person of color, I'm sure that you can resonate with the fact that families tend to be very, 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 very judgmental. And sometimes I don't think that it is intentional. I feel like, especially being Jamaican, I feel like it's a cultural thing and they don't recognize how it affects the children. They don't realize how it affects their offspring. So it becomes a thing where you kind of have to hold up a guard. And for me, I feel like the way that I've described, my heart before, is that it is a series of walls and gates. And then the first gate, it's easy. It's already open. You just walk in. And then the second gate has a lock, but the key's already in the lock, so you turn it. And then the third gate there's a key, but the key is hidden in the bush right beside, so you can find the key easily, and then you can open it. And then you get to the place where there's like concrete walls and there's barbed wire and there's all these things. And as you get deeper and deeper and deeper into things, there are many things that I know that I personally keep really close to my chest. There are a lot of things that I feel like maybe I haven't really processed them yet in a way where I feel comfortable sharing them. I know that a lot of people, when it comes to vulnerability, it's also a fear of getting judged, because I've seen this on social media many times where people have said, guys, I'm being vulnerable, and they're crying on social media, and people are like, this is so cringy. Why did you have to do this? You didn't have to turn on the camera, blah, blah, blah. But I know there are other people looking at it and being like, oh my God, I could never. And this is such an eye-opening moment for me, because I am seeing somebody express themselves without fear. Well, not necessarily without fear, because you don't know how they're feeling, but they are posting this thing and they're letting everybody have it and everybody see them in this state. And for me, because again, how I grew up, societal norms, cultural norms, I have a fear of presenting myself in a certain way because of the judgmental vibe. Even with, I think about vulnerability doesn't only have to be about telling your life story or talking about your experiences. Vulnerability can mean openly being yourself without fear of judgment. And even if you do get that judgment, you brush it off, because like anybody that judges you is judging themselves. That's one thing that I really had to learn. People project their negative views of themselves and of the world, and they reflect that back to you and try to make you feel bad about yourself. Again, sometimes it's not intentional, but people do that a lot. And for me, my vulnerability, I guess, with myself began with getting piercings. Like I've said on here before, I have 2 nose piercings. So getting piercings and getting tattoos. At this point, I think I have 13 tattoos. And my parents are very Christian. My family is very Christian, even down to my hair. I've talked about my locks. But these are all steps I took for myself, with the understanding that my parents would not be happy. If I was still going to church, my church members would not be happy. They would have something to say, etc., etc., etc. So I had to make these decisions about being myself and allowing the world to see me as I am, because I've always wanted tattoos since I was a child. Since I could probably hold a pen, I have been drawing on myself. And obviously kids draw on anything, including themselves. But as I got older, it still hasn't changed. And even my mom does it. Like, she always draws on herself with pen. And me getting tattoos is just a symbol of me doing what I've always wanted to do, regardless of the possible judgments that may come with it. My mom, my dad, I know that he doesn't necessarily like them, but he doesn't really say anything, because, I mean, what are you really gonna do? But my mom actively talks about my tattoos, and she asks me if I can get them removed, and she says, this doesn't make me proud, like, I'm so ashamed of you. Or she'll tell me, because it's summer and it's hot, today it's supposed to be a high of 33 degrees Celsius. I'm not sure what that is in Fahrenheit, but I know it's hot. And let's say that I decide to wear shorts outside today and a tank top. She will ask me, oh, can't you cover up your legs? I don't like seeing your legs. Or can't you cover up your arms? I don't like seeing, or she'll stare at them. And I know that this is her own conditioning and based on her own beliefs and her own cultural standards and cultural norms, but I can't allow her and her judgments to get into my head and allow me to not do what I want, because at the end of the day, it is my life. At the end of the day, I always say, as long as I'm not harming anybody, as long as I'm not harming myself or anybody else, and it's something that truly aligns with who I am and who I want to be, then I don't really need anybody else's approval. And again, it comes with release. I've talked about how my family doesn't know about the podcast, and this is also a place where I talk about being vulnerable, and again, I feel like I'm only being open. Recently, I talked about being assaulted, being R-worded, and R-word rape, and I did that because it felt like the right time and place at the end of Sexual Assault Awareness Month. I know that there are other people that could benefit from hearing that story, so I put myself aside and I recorded it. And I tried to record 3 times, 3 different locations, and it was really hard for me to do it, but I did it because I felt like it was time for me to share my story. And there are many other stories and instances that I have that I'm like, I know somebody could benefit from hearing this story. But again, I am trying to communicate from behind the brick walls that I described at the beginning. I'm trying to communicate from behind all of my own pain and shadows and stuff like that. So in reality, I am judging myself for my experiences. There are still things that I'm unlearning, and this is why I always recommend journaling and shadow work, because even though you may not be able to articulate the words and say to someone, say to a therapist, say to a friend, I feel this because of blah, 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 it doesn't mean that when you start writing that it won't come out. I have been so flustered so many times. It's one of the reasons why I love to write so much, because I have been flustered many times and been unable and frustrated and been unable to articulate my feelings. And I take a moment and I get myself grounded and I breathe and I write down the things. And sometimes the answers and the articulation falls out of my hands onto the page, and that's one of the reasons why I love to write so much, because it's like, I call it like the brain-hand connection versus like brain-mouth or brain-mouth-hand. Like, I feel like having the brain-hand connection is the best, because language, the way that I'm speaking right now, I am speaking in English, but there's going to be a limit. There's going to be a limited amount of people that can access this due to the language that I am speaking in, right? So when I am speaking, there are only a certain amount of words in the language that I know, and I may know some words that other people don't, and then other people may know words that I don't know. So there may be adjustments when it comes to understanding, or possibly even lapse in understanding, because I may say a word that someone considers a big word, but I may not have a smaller way to break it down, but they may think of it in another way that's like a smaller quote unquote word that is easier to break down and easier to understand the concept. But for me, with the brain hand connection, when I write, there is no need for me to have to translate what I feel. I'm just letting it I'm just letting it go. Whatever comes out, comes out. It doesn't matter. I'm just writing. And sometimes what you write feels like it has no connection to what you're feeling. But you'll see. After you write, and then if you write down how you feel, and then you go back to the person you're talking to, and they say, okay, how do you feel now? What do you have to say about the situation now? You'll find that you have opened up yourself to explaining differently, or you have let out some of the clutter that was causing you to not understand or articulate what you wanted to say. That's one of the things that I really do recommend when it comes to practicing vulnerability. Also, vulnerability comes with confidence. We have to be confident in what we do and what we say. And sometimes I'll see someone begging on the sidewalk, or I'll see someone without a home, and I'm like, oh my God, I want to stop and talk to this person and say hello. But there's like this fear that I just keep walking. And I remember one day I was going to work, and I saw this man sitting outside. He was right at the store beside us, and I kept looking at him, and I was like, I can just go outside right now, ask him if he wants something to eat, because he was sitting outside of a food place. And I just didn't bring myself to do it. And for the rest of the day, I was like, fuck. This man, like, my heart was calling out for me to help him. And then I said to Spirit, if I see him again, I will definitely ask him what he would like to eat, because I know that if you're sitting on the street asking for money, I know that you are hungry. So I think it was the next day or 2 days later, I went to work and I saw him, and I swallowed whatever inhibitions I had, and I went up to him and I said, hi. And he said hi, and I looked at him and I was like, are you hungry? And he said, yes, I am. And I was like, what would you like? And he said, what do you like? I don't want to get anything, that you would normally spend money on. And I said, oh, he was sitting in front of a McDonald's. So I was like, oh, McDonald's, like, I don't really eat anything from McDonald's because I don't eat meat, but normally I get fries. What would you like? And he said, oh, can you get me a fish fillet? And I said, of course I can get you a fish fillet, of course. And I went in and I got it for him, and he was so happy, and he was so thankful. And I'm literally crying right now thinking about it, because I don't know if that was his only meal that day, but I could have walked into that McDonald's and bought myself anything I wanted. And I was going to work, so I would have gotten a free meal at work. And there are so many things for us to be grateful about in our experience. There are so many times where I think, oh my gosh, this, like, I shouldn't have survived this. Like, my life should look different right now, but I'm still here. There's this song by Brent Fayez, and it's called Burn One. It's an interlude, and he says, you are the luckiest girl alive. And every time I hear that song, it makes me want to cry, because that song is about me. Like, that song is about all the times that I should have died, all the times that I should have gone missing, all the times that I should have ended up in the psych ward, all the times. There are so many things that could have happened to me, but I am still here, and I am working on my vulnerability, because I am creating a life, or I am working towards a life where I know that people need other people that have experienced their life experiences or close to that are vulnerable about their experience, because so many people have said, I've seen you, I'm sure you've seen them too, comments on social media where people are like, I didn't know other people experience this, or you're in my head, or stuff like that. People feel so lonely in this existence, and being able to say, even in your loneliest moments, there's someone out there that can understand or understand you to some degree. Because honestly, when I remember when, it's one thing that you can never forget, but I remember when I was assaulted, and although I was very intoxicated, the feeling of certain things never really go away. And that was one of the first times I'd felt that deep, desperate. It was like a hollowness, but there was pain involved. It was a lot, and that is a feeling that I don't want anybody to experience ever. And if you have experienced it, and I can say, hey, I know what that's like. I experienced that firsthand, and I know that if when I become a therapist, when I become someone who is able to professionally give advice and to help people to guide their lives back to where they want it to be and help them to become their best, I want to be able to say, here, I obviously won't be able to, tell them the details of my experience as a service provider, but I'll be able to say what I would have wanted to hear. It's all about what the things that I know that people in moments of pain would want to hear, because I experienced that. And of course, I'm not going to always have the answers. And of course, I'm not going to always know what to say. I'm not going to always have experience in all of the situations people tell me about. But practicing vulnerability with myself, and right now in the stage of my life I am at, and practicing being more open as I'm practicing this vulnerability will allow me and will allow us to become better people, and it will allow us to be able to experience our existence more deeply. I saw this quote a while ago. The first time I saw it, it shocked me, because it was like, people can only know you as deeply as they know themselves. And I am working on knowing myself more deeply, and that is being vulnerable with the self, which means that I will only be able to foster relationships and attract people that also are learning themselves and knowing themselves, because I don't think that anyone can know themselves, because the self is always changing and there are always layers and new things approaching when it comes to existence, because every single second that we exist, we're pulling in so much stimuli, we are seeing so much, we're experiencing so much that we don't even recognize sometimes. We don't even really realize what impact things are having on us until we look back, or until the thing has already impacted us and we're already feeling the effects. So all of that to say, when it comes to being vulnerable and when it comes to fostering that, it is so important to first be patient with yourself. We need to, of course, have confidence when it comes to making choices and trusting ourselves. Confidence and trusting the self are two things in one. So it's 2A and 2B. Third, try to learn to become comfortable with your emotions. So speaking about it to people you trust, definitely journaling, even opening a voice note and ranting on your phone and then deleting it. Whatever you need to do to practice becoming more vulnerable with your feelings. And also, don't be sharing your deepest, darkest secrets with everyone because you're practicing vulnerability, because that can set you back a little bit, because sharing with the wrong person can really put you back into, it can send you 3 steps back after you've worked so hard. So I say, when it comes with sharing with people that are not medical professionals or mental health professionals or trusted individuals, friends, family, significant others, etc., it is so important that you watch that person first. Listen to how they speak about other people. Listen to how they speak about themselves. Listen to what they speak about. Listen to how the conversations go, and you will be able to be the judge of if you trust that person with your secret, with the part of you that you are opening up to them. And as usual, follow your intuition. It will guide you to who you can talk to and what you can say around people, definitely. And yeah, that's all I have to say for this episode. Thank you for being here. I love you so much. And I'll catch you guys in the next episode. Bye.